Hello, and welcome to Back of the Sheds, the video series where I take a look at some of the more forgotten locos in history. Today, I'll be covering the London, Brighton, and South Coast Railway D1 class. William Stroudley of the LB&SCR developed the A1 class to work commuter trains, but realized they weren't suited for some of the heavier work. So Stroudley took his Terrier, gave it a lift kit, deleted the back driving wheel, and called it a day. The first D1 appeared in 1873 in the form of number 1, Sydenham. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, that's a really hard word to say. 125 were built in total, 90 were built at Brighton, and the remainder were built at Nielsen & Company, the last of which being built in 1887, numbered 362, named Kiddenbrook. The class numbers range from 1 to 36, and 221 to 362. After 1883, new locomotives had their boiler pressure raised from 140 psi to 150 psi, and after Stroudley's death in 1892, their boiler pressure was raised again to 160 psi. Older locos would later have their boiler pressure raised too. The class were mainstays on outer suburban services until Billington's D3 440s came along in the 1890s. The D1s were pushed onto secondary services and occasionally freight. The class was spared from early withdrawal by being in good condition and being well liked by crews. So Douglas Earl Marsh set out to modify 6 members of the class with large boilers and cylinders. However, was only able to rebuild one of the class, and it looks like this. Not my cup of tea, but if you like big boiler tank engines, hey, it's for you. At this point in the video, I'd like to introduce you to Patcham. This is Patcham. This is also Patcham. This is also Patcham. Oh, Patcham. As funny as some of these pictures are, there was one incident that turned out to be fatal. On September 1st, 1897, a late-running passenger train being hauled by 297 Bonchurch derailed at Tooth's Bank between Heathfield and Mayfield. The locomotive and several carriages left the tracks and rolled down an embankment. 31 people were injured, including the fireman, and the driver, James McKinley, was killed. The cause of the accident was determined to be excessive speed, being an attempt to make up for lost time, and poor track conditions, with notes of many rotten sleepers and curves of irregular elevation. The track was consequently relaid, and train schedules were altered to allow more time in the timetables for delays. 84 D1s and the D1X passed into Southern Railway ownership in 1922 following the grouping. The class was favored on some secondary duties, even favored over new locomotives. The class had an interesting career during the Second World War. Along with their usual secondary services, 6 were loaned to the London, Midland and Scottish Railway, where they were used on the north of Scotland. 9 of the class were also repurposed into firefighting engines, these being fitted with water pumps and other firefighting equipment. They were stationed in major motive power depots in London to help deal with the aftermath of the London bombings. Only 20 members of the class would pass into British Railways ownership upon its formation in 1948, although many had been left in storage for several years by this point. While they were all allocated BR numbers, only one of them ever received their BR number, this being 32359, formerly Egmont. The last of the class was withdrawn in 1951 from 9 Elms Shed, this being formerly 284 Ashburnham. However, this was not the last of the class. In 1947, 2357, formerly Riddlesdown, was purchased by the Whittingham Hospital Railway in Lancashire for £750, which is about £13,700 in today's money. It was given the number 1 and renamed James Friars. The locomotive was found to have major boiler defects in 1956 and was deemed beyond economic repair. It was scrapped in the same year, being the sole survivor of its class. The D1s share a similar story to other suburban tank engines, being displaced by something newer and being used on more secondary services. However, what makes the D1s interesting is their service after being displaced. Their use as firefighting locos will always be fascinating to me, but however fascinating I find this class, it shall remain at the back of the sheds. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I have. If you did enjoy, consider liking and subscribing. It keeps you up to date on projects I'm working on, and it helps me out too. The next video won't be a Back of the Sheds video. I've got something else planned for that, so I hope you guys like that one. That's gonna be really fun. But until then, I'll see you guys. Along with their usual secondary services, 6 were loaned to the London, Midland and Scottish Railway, where they were used on the north of Wales. Wales?